But the question was, when you're home and you walk into a room, what energy are you filling that room with? What do your children feel when you enter into their space? Do they feel uptight and uncomfortable because you're always stressed? Or do they feel fun and filled with joy and excitement because when you're with them, you're present and you bring almost like a goofy, loving, affectionate energy? I don't know about you guys, but I am terrified of being that first example. Well, everybody, welcome to this very special episode of Stronger Weekly. I'm your host, Jesse Karajat. Thank you so much for being here. And this is a special episode because this marks the 2-year anniversary of our show. We're publishing on Tuesday this week instead of Monday because Tuesday is Veterans Day. So if you're listening to this on November 11th, happy Veterans Day. Shout out to the veterans out there in the world. But 2 years ago, 11/11/2023, we started this show. And here we are, still going strong, putting out an episode every single week. And my goal when I started the show was to make a difference. My intent with the show is that whoever's listening will walk away with some information or motivation to help you grow stronger that week in some aspect of your fitness. And that can be physical fitness, mental fitness, emotional fitness, spiritual fitness. So I'm just so grateful for the journey that we've been on and for the future in front of us. Next week, it's serendipitous, but we're going to kick off a new kind of evolution, a new season of this show. I have an incredible sponsor coming on board that's going to be a big part of the show. They're in the fitness and nutrition space. I'm so excited to make that announcement next week. But if you're hearing me, it's from a heart of gratitude. So thank you for everyone that's been with the show from the start. Thank you for all the new listeners that have been here. It really means the world to me. So for this episode, what I'm going to actually do is just bring my 5 lessons, the top lessons that I've learned in 2 years of podcasting. I've met some incredible people along the way and had some amazing conversations with people from all over the world, right? People who are authors, athletes, scientists, content creators, researchers. What I've noticed is there are common themes. There are common almost patterns that a lot of these people have and hold. And I wanted to bring those lessons because I've just gained so much wisdom that's helped me improve my life in the 2 years of doing this. So I thought I'd celebrate 2 years by just bringing my top 5 lessons that I've learned in 2 years of podcasting. And that'll be on the back half of the episode. So I certainly hope you hold on for that. But now, as I always do, we're going to start with our top 5 health and fitness headlines of the week. Let's get into it. All right, your first health and fitness headline of the week. Big headlines this week on weight loss drugs and healthcare reform. As reported by CNN and other outlets, the Trump administration has finalized historic deals with Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and others to slash prices on blockbuster GLP-1 medications, drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound, and expand access through Medicare. Under the new agreements, oral GLP-1 pills will start at just $149 per month, with injectables averaging $350 and expected to fall to $250 within just 2 years. Medicare enrollees with obesity-related conditions will have co-pays capped at just $50, covering roughly 10% of beneficiaries. So if you have a diagnosis of obesity, extra savings for you for these drugs. In return, drug makers get expedited FDA reviews and tariff breaks while agreeing to adopt, quote, most favored nation pricing, matching the lowest rates in peer nations. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, quote, this is a tool in the toolkit, not a silver bullet, but it will allow people locked into high-risk obesity to finally lose weight and reset their health, end quote. The initiative launches in early 2026 through TrumpRx.gov, a new direct-to-consumer platform. If it delivers, it could reshape how Americans access obesity treatment, long criticized for sky-high costs. and inequitable coverage. So, takeaway for everybody, there's more access to effective weight loss medications, which could mean real progress and the help that people need. But lifestyle and nutrition still do the heavy lifting for most of us. Next up, a wildly popular device called Brick is helping people drop the social media habit and quit their doom scrolling. So, developed by a former designer in the tech industry, the device, Brick, removes all social media apps and limits functions to calls, texts, and navigation on your phone. Users say it helps reclaim focus, sleep, and real-world presence. One digital strategist quoted by MSN said, quote, "It felt like rewiring my brain. I stopped reaching for my phone every few minutes and actually started thinking again." Experts say the timing is critical. A 2025 Pew Research report found the average American now spends more than 4.5 hours per day on mobile screens, and heavy users report higher anxiety, depression, and distraction scores. So, Brick is the name of this one such device. One of my friends uses it. You put it on your fridge, you program it, you tell it, don't give me access to these things after this time. And literally, it will shut down access to those addictive places like Instagram, social media, TikTok, whatever your thing is. But huge advocate for this. So glad that technology is going to help us hopefully curb and cut our addiction to social media, because statistics are showing more and more that our mental health as a country is declining rapidly, and social media is a cause. So go after Brick or find something like it. Sounds like a great idea. I'm all for it. Your next health and fitness headline: big headlines around sleep aids this week as melatonin is questioned after a new study links it to heart risks. So, as reported by ABC News and other outlets, a new analysis published in JAMA Cardiology, JAMA-man, questions whether melatonin supplements may be linked to worsened heart health outcomes in certain populations. Researchers reviewed data from more than 170,000 adults, finding that frequent melatonin users, especially those taking doses above 5 milligrams, had a slightly elevated risk of arrhythmia and blood pressure irregularities. Neither are good. Lead author Dr. Catherine Miller said, quote, "Melatonin isn't inherently dangerous, but people think of it as harmless candy. In high or chronic doses, it can alter cardiovascular rhythms and hormone balance." So, takeaway for most people: short-term melatonin use is fine, but over-reliance can backfire. Focus on real sleep hygiene if you can. Don't rely on melatonin, such as things like consistent bedtimes, morning sunlight, and no screens before bed before reaching for supplements. And last thing I'll say, if you're taking melatonin, let your doctor know and ask about potential side effects, especially if you already have or are at risk for developing cardiovascular disease. Your next health and fitness headline: once a week, I always take a shot at alcohol. This time, a sobering update from Harvard Medical School, finding that heavy drinking is linked to worse stroke outcomes this time. So, new findings published in the journal Stroke reveal that people who drink heavily, defined as more than 8 drinks per week for women and 15 for men, experience significantly worse outcomes after stroke, including higher rates of disability and mortality. So, researchers analyzed data from over 12,000 stroke patients, finding heavy drinkers had a 32% higher chance of severe brain injury and longer hospital stays. Lead researcher Dr. Marios Gorgakis said, quote, "Even moderate drinking can alter blood pressure regulation and increase clotting risk. Alcohol's toxic effect on the brain and cardiovascular system is cumulative." Another nail in the coffin for the old glass of wine a day myth. For brain and heart health, aim to keep alcohol to minimal occasional use, or skip it entirely if you can. And finally, your last health and fitness headline: big news from the American Psychological Association's annual Stress in America report. The survey of more than 3,500 U.S. adults found that 74% of Americans report feeling overwhelmed by stress at least once per week, 3 in 4. This is the highest rate since tracking began back in 2007. Top stressors include finances at 83%, work at 77%, political division at 68%, and health concerns at 62%. Gen Z adults reported the sharpest increases in anxiety, with 9 in 10 describing their stress as debilitating. So APA CEO Dr. Arthur Evans Jr. said, quote, chronic stress is becoming a public health crisis, eroding mental resilience, family stability, and physical well-being, end quote. So not good, not good. So what can we do about it? Exercise, social connection, mindfulness, adequate sleep are the strongest protective factors. And when or if stress feels unmanageable, please seek therapy or counseling because it can make all the difference. So that is it for our health and fitness headlines this week. Just a quick word from our sponsor, and then we'll see you on the other side. Look, if you're like me, you enjoy a drink every now and then. A glass of wine with dinner, a cold beer after a long week, maybe even a night out with friends. But you want to stay in control. That's why I'm excited about Clutch, the newest innovation from Or Health. Clutch is a fast-acting naltrexone mint you take before you drink. It dissolves quickly, absorbs through your mouth, and starts working fast, helping you curb the cravings without giving up drinking altogether. It's discreet, portable, and designed for real life. The mints come in a sleek, pocket-sized case that goes wherever you go. If you've been trying to moderate or simply drink smarter, this is the tool that you need. To get started, text STRENGTH to 710-710. That's STRENGTH to 710-710. Answer a few quick questions, and your Clutch will be shipped directly to your door. No more hangovers, no more guilt, just the control you need in the palm of your hand. Bulletproof your drinking with Clutch now. All right, everybody, welcome back to the episode. As I alluded to in the intro, now we're going to talk about the top 5 lessons that I've learned in 2 years of podcasting. And as I mentioned, I've interviewed top trainers and scientists and authors, coaches, all those things. And I'm going to now distill some of the common themes that I think are the most important and consistent that I've learned throughout those 2 years. So the first lesson, we all tend to overcomplicate fitness. It feels as though if you pay attention, whether that's on social media, on Google, elsewhere, we're all kind of looking for or waiting for some new kind of breakthrough fitness protocol, some exotic new way to train, some new, scientific breakthrough supplement or something that's just going to change the game in fitness. And the reality is, simple is more, right? We overcomplicate it. We know what works with fitness. The reality is there is no secret routine or supplement that you can start that's just going to make you fit tomorrow. Are there cheat codes out there? Sure. Steroids, there's hormone replacement, there's Ozempic and all these GLP-1s. And unfortunately, in social media, a lot of people aren't honest that they're using that. But by and large, we overcomplicate fitness and we know what works. And I've had so many elite strength and conditioning athletes, trainers, and they always boil it down to the same thing. Consistency is key. 99% of us can look and feel great by following simple protocols. And what are they? First and foremost, strength training is essential. Whether you do it 3 times a week, 4, 5, 6, that is entirely up to you and your goals. But resistance training or strength training is essential for building muscle mass, for building bone density, for living healthier longer, for looking better. You have to be strength training. So that's one theme that is overwhelmingly common in my interviews. A second one is cardiovascular health, and cardiovascular training is essential for body composition, for longevity and health span. You have to be doing some form of cardiovascular training if you want to be well-rounded in your health. And within that, you need to be focusing on zone 2 cardio, sustained, moderate to low intensity cardio. Some people say 90 minutes a week. Some people say 120. If you're easing into it, just make sure that you're getting a good amount of zone 2 cardio every week. And then it is healthy to train your heart to be able to perform at near maximal heart rates for a smaller percentage of the time that you invest in cardio. So in other words, you're investing about 80% of your intentional cardio around zone 2, but then maybe 20% or even less of some type of HIIT, high intensity interval training, but something where you're training your heart to be able to perform if you ask it to do more like intense work, things like sprints, assault bike, burpees, box jumps, stuff like that. Because if you hit your cardio training from both ends, if you're doing steady state cardio and high intensity, you'll have a strong, flexible heart that's able to meet the demands of what you place on it, right? So cardiovascular training, hands down, is important. You need to be incorporating some type of mobility training into your protocols, flexibility, whether that's, dynamic stretches or static stretches where you're holding, a longer stretch for a longer period of time. But mobility and flexibility is often overlooked. And we do those things so we can prevent injuries, but they also allow us to perform in the other training that we talked about, things like running and weightlifting. And then lastly, daily steps outside of your intentional training session, just being active in general throughout the day, is so healthy for you. It's healthy for you from a mental standpoint, but also you're burning more calories throughout the day. So just move in general, whether that's daily walks, preferably outside, or just standing up at your desk, moving at your desk if you have a stationary job. But movement outside of training, I've seen in all of the interviews that I've done, is absolutely critical, but often overlooked. So the common theme, number one, the top lesson is that don't overcomplicate your fitness, be consistent, and be well-rounded. Lesson number 2, I've learned life is hard. And the next piece is sometimes we make it even harder for ourselves. So many of the guests that come on this show have a story of some type of adversity that they've overcome. And if you need some type of proof that in 2025 life can be difficult, look no further than science or studies. I've pulled out 2 of them, but this one's first from Temple University in 2025, found that more than 1 in 8 Americans aged 12 or older experience symptoms of depression, which is nearly double the rate a decade ago. And this one has to do with working, like work-life balance, things like that. But this next one, 84% of U.S. workers reported experiencing at least one mental health challenge in the past year. 71% reported at least one symptom of stress. So 8 in 10 American workers experiencing at least one mental health challenge. So most of us listening right now have experienced something that is hard, some type of mental health challenge. But the question becomes, what do you do about it? One is you can assess your circumstances and make changes to your circumstances. Maybe it's the job, right? Maybe it's too much on your schedule, too much on your calendar. Maybe you're putting too much pressure on yourself for different reasons. So you can look at your circumstances and change those so you have better work-life balance and better health. But the other piece is changing how you cope with it. Maybe audit your life, right? If life feels hard, is it your circumstances or your ability to cope? And ask yourself, am I making this harder than it needs to be because I'm not making the necessary changes in my life, or I'm coping with it in an unhealthy way? I think that's a good takeaway to think about. And speaking of coping in an unhealthy way, lesson 3, distraction is the thief of joy. We chase relief or escape through dopamine, cheap dopamine hits, instead of being intentional, right? So what do I mean by that? So cheap dopamine hits, think about the most common places where we escape to, right? It could be something that we ingest or consume, like alcohol, chasing that release from the stress. It could be places we escape to online, social media, the greatest threat to mental health in America. It could be pornography, gambling, but all of these things are offering these cheap, unearned dopamine hits to escape life. And it could not be worse for our health. And they almost always spiral into an addiction. And just some key statistics here. This one's from addictionhelp.com in 2025. An estimated 10% of U.S. adults, that's 33 million people, are addicted to social media. This next one here from Pew Research 2025, half of U.S. teens, so 48%, say social media has a mostly negative effect on their health and their peer group at large. Just astonishing stats. So what can we do about that? How do we stop escaping? Ask yourself this question. Where am I chasing cheap dopamine? And what can you be doing that's more healthy? Lesson 4, parenting is hard, and we don't want to admit it. I think it feels like a failure as a parent just to say that parenting is hard, especially when you're new to it, and especially when you're in certain seasons of parenting. Each season has its own unique challenges. I'm personally in the season of young kids, 3 of them, lots of activities, lots of emotions, lots of sounds, lots of chaos, lots of all those things, while also essentially 2 jobs, social life, fitness goals. It can be a lot. Statistics to prove it, 57% of U.S. parents report burnout, often tied to unrealistic expectations that they place on themselves. That's from Ohio State University in 2024. This next one, 33% of parents report high stress in the past month, and nearly half say their stress feels, quote, completely overwhelming. So the facts are there, folks. Why? Overstimulation, right? Overpacked, overcrammed schedules, noises, emotions. A lot of times as a parent, let's just face it, you feel out of control. If it consists every single day, every single week, you just start to feel hopeless, and it can be really, really challenging. So what can we do as parents just to feel better and maybe just feel proud? First and foremost, just trust that you're doing a good job. If you even care about how good of a parent you are, you're already halfway there. You've got a good heart. You've got good intent. You're not going to be a perfect parent. None of us are, but just trust that you're doing a good job. Put your head down at the pillow and say, you know what? I had my mistakes today, but all in all, I did my best. And just believe that that is, and this is the next lesson, good enough. Good enough parenting is good enough. We're not going to be perfect. We should be pursuing progress, not perfection as parents. Number 3, ask for help. We all think that by asking for help as a parent is a failure. And what do I mean by ask for help? If you have your spouse there, be honest and say, look, I am overwhelmed and overstimulated right now. Can you carry the weight right now? Just give me 15 minutes to go clear my head. I'll be right back, right? That's asking for help. It could be, hey, mom, dad, this would be, grandma, grandpa. Do you think you can come take the kids tonight? I'll put the youngest one down. Just come. They can watch a show. My wife and I, we need to go grab dinner. We need to get away. We had a tough go, right? It feels like failure to say that, but it's so healthy because it allows you to recharge so that you can come back and be better the next day, right? But ask for help, whatever that looks like. Be honest if you're struggling as a parent. This next one, someone taught me once. They asked me if I've ever asked myself this question, and I'm going to ask it to you now, assuming you're a parent, right? But the question was, when you're home and you walk into a room, what energy are you filling that room with? What do your children feel when you enter into their space? Do they feel uptight and uncomfortable because you're always stressed? Or do they feel fun and filled with joy and excitement because when you're with them, you're present and you bring almost like a goofy, loving, affectionate energy? I don't know about you guys, but I am terrified of being that first example. And I want nothing more to be that second example. I want the energy that I bring into the room to be full of love and comfort. No judgment, no punishment, just daddy's in the room. I'm so happy, right? And then the question becomes, well, how do you get there? Because that's all you need as a good parent. And this is what I'm preaching to you, right? At the end of the day, you think you have to come up with the perfect response and lesson for every scenario that pops up every day. You think every time they ask these big questions about God, about life, about school, bullying, friendship, whatever, you put this pressure on yourself that you have to have the perfect verbal wisdom for them. And sometimes you will, sometimes you won't, right? That's not as important of how you make them feel. Well, those feelings are created by the parents, and it's our responsibility to create that, because that is basically programming for them how they're going to experience the whole world. And we don't want to send our kids off into the world with this nervous system of guardedness and defensiveness and insecurity and skepticism. And it starts with us. Look, life can be hard and stressful sometimes. We all know that. But when it comes to supplements, why is it that nobody talks about stress and resilience? For me, I take the adaptogen stack from Momentous Supplements. It's a daily blend of ashwagandha, rhodiola, and L-theanine, all clinically backed to help you stay calm, focused, and resilient. I'm proudly partnered with Momentous Supplements because they are the industry's best. They don't cut corners. Everything's third-party tested, used by pro athletes, and high quality. Head to livemomentous.com and use code STRENGTH for 35% off your first order. Again, that's livemomentous.com, code word STRENGTH for 35% off your first order, and get started today. And this last one, the last lesson, it came up so many times in 2 years of doing this show. Sleep. Sleep is the ultimate health and fitness tool, and most of us just completely neglect it. How many people neglect it? Some stats here. This is from the National Sleep Foundation. This year in 2025, 60% of adults don't get enough sleep, 68% struggle to fall asleep, and 70% struggle staying asleep. So that's a lot. One other statistic around sleep, this is from Harvard Sleep Health 2025. Sleeping fewer than 5 hours per night raises mortality risk by up to 15%. So sleep is absolutely pivotal. You could be doing everything right. And if you're not getting enough consistent quality sleep, so consistent is a similar amount of sleep at the similar times every day, and quality is within that sleep. You're getting enough REM and you're getting enough deep sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep, your cortisol is going to be spiked. You're going to have more chronic inflammation. Your hormones will be jacked up. Your mental performance, your physical performance, your overall longevity and health span will suffer if you are chronically not sleeping enough. There's this kind of lie that we tell ourselves that we don't have enough time every day. We don't have enough time every day. And then that pushes us to cram our days. And then what we do is we make up for the lack of time by sleeping less, which is completely insane. It's the last thing we should do. Be intentional. Spend an hour and just audit a day in your life, and identify wasted time, lack of prioritization. Because I guarantee you, if you pull 15 minutes of doom scrolling social media here, and 15 minutes of shopping for something on Amazon that you don't need, and 15 minutes over here of just procrastinate, you can find the additional time that you need to get the sleep that you need to have a healthier, happier life. So I would challenge you to audit it. Audit your day, because I promise you can find additional time. So sleep is definitely one of the common themes that I wanted to cover here on this show. So that's it, folks. That is it for my recap of the top 5 lessons that I've learned in 2 years of podcasting. So number 1, we often overcomplicate fitness. Keep it simple. Number 2, life is hard, but oftentimes we make it harder than it needs to be. Number 3, distraction is the thief of joy. Limit cheap dopamine. Number 4, parenting is hard, but it's also sacred. Number 5, sleep is the ultimate performance enhancer, and it is the low-hanging fruit of things we can do to get happier and healthier. So as I mentioned, look, 2 years, I'm so grateful. Thanks so much for joining. To all the listeners, I really appreciate it. As I always like to ask, look, if you're still here at the end of the episode, one of the things that help us grow so much is if you could leave a rating, if you like the show, that is. If you didn't like it, please don't do that. You could leave a review or even ask a question. You could follow the show, and you could share it with a friend if you think it can help them. I'd really appreciate that. That really helps us to find more people so that they can grow stronger every single week. You could also, if you have a question or a comment or just want to get in touch, you can email us at contact@strongerweekly.com. We monitor that email, and we're always looking for questions because we do Ask Us Anything episodes every so often, and you just might hear your question asked on the show. So one last time, thank you so much for joining the show. I hope it helped you in some way to grow stronger this week, and we will see you next time. Happy Veterans Day.